Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. As the UK is coming up to 40,000 deaths, America, I think, is coming up to 100,000, is it? I don't know how close they are to that figure now. In the world, how many is it in the world? It must be over 200,000. And I saw on the news yesterday on Sky News, well, a few things. I was going to bring them to you, but I can't be bothered now. The same things I talk about all the time about the care homes, about how they've been brought into the care homes, and I just don't get how journalists don't ask the questions I seem to scream at the TV, which is to be more specific. So, are they talking about care home patients that went in from the care home to the hospital and then came back and weren't tested properly or given back too early? Or are they talking about elderly people that were at home that went into hospital and then were discharged into a care home to continue their care rather than in a hospital, where anyone who's with the disease should be in a hospital, especially now that we found out that the NHS Nightingale in the Excel Centre in London only had less than 100 patients despite having 4,000 beds. Rather than sending those people into care homes, which is the most vulnerable set of people, why not send them to the Nightingale Hospital and the other Nightingale hospitals that are around the UK now? But it just, to me, I mean, anyone with any common sense, the most vulnerable people for flus and for COVID-19 is elderly people who generally have underlying health conditions, because we all get health conditions as we get older, and they're in a care home probably because they have such a bad condition that their actual relatives can't look after them, and they need carers to actually provide them 24 hours. So, such a vulnerable area. Why would you risk sending anyone back into there when they don't have PPE, when they don't have medical equipment and the medical knowledge that, you know, everyone claims how science is so important and we have to do things by science? How could you then send anyone back into a care home? I mean, it seems a bit like putting a lit match into a vat of petrol. It's obviously going to set alight. And then that's what's happened now. Now, is it 2/3 of the people that have died have been from, I'm just plucking that figure out of my head, I don't know if it's actually up there at the moment. They've just released 39,000. I know there's been a lot in the care homes, it's been a lot. And that may explain why we haven't seen it. And all these people have been putting the empty hospital videos. Is why we might not have been seeing these huge numbers, is because the majority of them were in care homes and been taken back out of hospital, back into care homes. And I know there's going to be an investigation, and it won't be independent. It'll be done by some judge who believes in the system and isn't going to want to look at the government in bad eyes, and it's probably being on the payroll, part of a pharmaceutical company or a hospital or a government friend or whatever. And then they'll just find, no, the government did everything they possibly could. Maybe they could have done better things if there'd been hindsight. I love how they use that. You know, we all... It's like how they try to blame China and the WHO now for these things, whereas up to each individual country to work out their own shit, not blame their neighbours. An organisation that's funded by the US and the UK anyway, it's their own organisation. But to start blaming people when, I mean, like with China, China, they're talking about the transmission to humans. I think they told us in January that it was in humans. It took some time maybe to release that. Maybe they would, how fucking long does it take for us to do things? And we're just pointing the finger at someone else. We've made promises of this, that, and the other. We fail to meet, and then we fix figures to do it and smile. We should be the last people accusing other countries of what they do. The fact is that China did tell us, in the end, whatever the political problems inside their own country, that's up to them. We have those as well. It's like we're pretending we're whiter than white, and that we must point the finger. But we knew in January. We didn't do anything till March, and even pointing the finger at WHO told us to do things a lot earlier. and the lies that Boris Johnson told at the beginning. It was on Charlie Brooker's anti-bacterial wipe. He came back to do one, and that was a brilliant expose. I know it's satirical, but yeah, it showed the system better than any news program. How this all happened, the lies we talked about, the testing centres being brilliant, and then finding out, no, we don't have as good a testing centre in Germany. That's why we haven't been able to do track and trace. Is just. But the thing I really want to talk about is there's this sort of news article about Yemen. I think it said 230,000 people have died in this conflict. I mean, that's nearly as many as COVID-19. But it's interesting how there's, lots of these travesties going on. We'll be talking about COVID-19 for generations and how it was bad and how we got over it and, this, that and the other. If we treated it like other illnesses, like the flu that kills these people, same, maybe not, I don't know if it's this great number, maybe it might even be more people every year, but just because it's seen as normal or untreatable, then it's just, if we'd done that with COVID-19, we would have seen it the same way. More people die of cancer, more people die of all these diseases that we aren't putting these billions of pounds and working with countries and pharmaceutical companies all working together like we are for COVID-19, for cancer and all these types of things. We've got millions of charities there. Where's all this money going to? I don't know. Because if at the end of this, with these billions of pounds that these countries and charities have raised, find a cure for a coronavirus, which has never been done before, because there's a common cold and flu, and we never seem to be able to, because they can keep mutating, and I don't know why, the reason why we've never been able to get one. Maybe because common cold doesn't kill anyone, so that's why. If we manage to do that, then you've got to ask the question, then these trillions of pounds that must have been given to charity of all these countries, I mean, how many cancer and heart and diabetes charities are there in just the UK? Then times that by how many around the world, how many over the last 100 years of these charities, how much money they've collected, and they still haven't found a cure. But the thing I saw on Yemen was this baby who was dying of starvation, or I'm not sure exactly, I assume it was starvation. You could see its ribs, and we'd seen these pictures before. We saw them in Band Aid in 1984, was it, in Ethiopia. We see them in Somalia, Yemen. We see lots of these things, and these tend to be man-made problems. They're not like we can blame on COVID-19, a bacterial problem. Is it bacterial or it's virus, isn't it? So it's not. Well, it depends what you believe in. What is COVID-19? Whether it is that. But some of these are man-made problems, the way that we live in the system that we live in. And to me, it all seems about division. Everything seems to be divided. The way we live, the way we... human beings aren't divided. We're all just one. The only division between human beings is different animals. But still, you could class us all animals and there's no division. But humans love to divide everything. We divide our country, the bits of land into countries. We divide our sexualities. We divide our how we are by the colour of our skin, our football teams. Every single fucking thing is divided. And the reason for that is to be able to put in these little boxes and fight each other and never get anything done. Because we keep dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing, rather than acknowledging that actually we're all one. And that's the only truth. But then I was thinking about this child. Countless people have seen this child on the news. I mean, you could argue that I don't have any power, I don't have any money, all I can do is say something on here and hope that someone with power or influence or money, as they two seem to go together, can do something. But then the problem is it's because different countries run different ways, or tribes fighting each other, despite them actually being the same. And this is not to laugh at tribes, because we are tribes as well. The Second World War is a tribal fight between one nation against another nation. But we're all the same. We're all human beings fighting over land that's not even ours. We were given everything freely, and we divided it up ourselves, and then fight over the control of that division. But yeah, what made me think is we've seen these starving children, and we don't. We feel empathy, we cry, we get angry, wishing we could do something about it, but nothing changes. But if it was your own family member you saw, your own, say your brother or your mother's child on a bed starving like that, and they put it on the news and you saw, you'd be running to do something, wouldn't you? And I feel that's because we've created like the family unit. And I know it has its benefits, but I don't know how true it is, in the sense that the problem by creating that is it enables you to be in that circle, in that box, and not care about outside of that box. Whereas really we should, because we're all part of that box. The only real box that there is not family, is not race, is not ethnicity, it is none of that. It's not political persuasion and sexual persuasion. There may be natural biological things, but the only true box that we're all in is humanity. And we should feel exactly the same when we see our loved brother and sister, mother, father, uncle, auntie, grandfather, grandmother, as we do a complete stranger. That's the problem. We see them as strangers, as foreigners, as whatever term you want to use. But we're all human beings. And yeah, you could argue that we don't have power, the most people on this YouTube channel. But there are people, actually on YouTube, actually in the world, who have power and influence, but don't do anything about it.
6 years of civil war, and behind the destruction, displacement, disease, and famine. The world's worst humanitarian disaster. It is a phrase associated with Yemen for so long, it no longer seems to resonate.
I mean, how do you not look at that child and want to do something about that? But I just wanted you to see that image that I saw. And it's not the first time we've all seen things like that. But why we can't do anything, the rich and powerful, those in charge, why can't they let go of their reins and change this world for the better, for children like that, for all of us? Why do we keep protecting, and why do we keep staying the same way? I don't know how people see that and have the power to change things. Even if it's, the US and UK can't do it because it's another country. What about Yemen? What about Saudi? I think they're to do with it, isn't it? To do with giving weapons. I'm sure the UK and the US give weapons to each side in these tribes. Why can't they see the suffering they're doing to a child that looks much like themselves? And why can't we do the same as well? When we around the world will charge people for vaccines and keep countries in poverty, especially those that we call developing, even though every country is exactly the same. We all have the same capability. We all know how to cure things. We all know how to make good infrastructure. We all, in the West, we live this world of bounty, of having TVs and clean water and everything that we need. And people, we call them immigrants, try coming from, I say, poorer countries to try and get to this life, but there's nothing that stops every single person from having that life, because we have the knowledge. We have that knowledge already in here. So why can't we give it to everyone without having to charge them with it? Why does it take something like COVID-19 for us to understand or do that? I mean, it is a disgrace, and you'll get... I mean, I don't understand how people can't see this, especially people on the media, and not get angry about that, not say the same things that I'm saying, and not want to challenge these things and change this world that we're living in. Because it doesn't have to be this way, does it? It's only this way because we keep telling our children, oh, this is the way it is, and this is the only way it can be. That's how we get away from, and enable us to sleep at night and get away from the guilt of the crimes that each one of us, especially those in power and ability and knowledge, the crimes against humanity, against our fellow brothers and sisters, which we truly are. We see ourselves in this little family, with your surname as another trick. But that's not the case. We don't know who we are. When we're born, we're given a name, but we don't know who we are. Same as we don't know what an animal is called. We've given it a name, or the place we live upon. Everything we've given, we didn't know what it really is. We choose to create the system that we live in. But why would you create a system that sees a child like that suffering? And it'll be easy for someone in a desk in Whitehall or in America or someone to challenge this video and say, oh, that's because of the Yemenis, that's because of the Hutu tribes or whatever tribe it is, or that's because of Saudi selling them weapons, or for Americans selling them weapons, that's because whoever invented guns. No, it's for all of us. Do you need what? I mean, if you see two children fighting in a playground, you just let them do it and carry on. Well, you stop them, don't you? And you change that environment. Well, this is just on a much bigger scale. But the thing is, unless the big countries, those powerful influencers who can change whatever they want, and this is possible because, you know, I was watching on Sky News, they were talking about influencers and political things, how they influence referendum, these big, rich think tanks and all these rich people like the Gates and Rockefellers and all these different types of people that, you know, you see on YouTube and conspiracy videos. I hate to use that term, but that's just so it's easy for me to explain it. You see all these names popping up, these influencers who've got lots of money and they give donations to all these countries and political movements and think tanks and etc. So it is possible. But it's what do they want to change? Do they want to make more money? Do they want to have more control? Do they want to have more empires? Empires that when they're dead, they'll be gone. But those people who are suffering will be left behind. I mean, anyone who can listen to this and actually really think and open their mind and forget all the things they knew from the past and have been taught and actually realise, go and look out at the world, it really is. If you could do that, if you could go every single person's house and see how they're all living and the squalor they're living, that child, if you could stand in front of that child and justify the way that we're all living and then go to sleep, maybe there's no point in saving humanity if you can do that, because I can't. When you see things like that, and that's just one example of how many children have died like that over lifetimes. How can you be proud of humanity? We often, you know, we clap on for carers and nurses and etc., or Olympics or footballs or pop stars and etc., to try and stop our minds from seeing these things. But that suffering's going on while we're doing all that, while we're living this luxury. How is that fair? How is that right? How is that human? How is that humane? Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.